there are a couple people on the dais I just want to recognize. One, my dear friend Oscar Villas. You know, when I was I used to be a Middlesex County prosecutor, and after your term as a prosecutor, you know, the prosecutor comes up to you and says, you know, do you want your badge, or we can put it on a plaque? This is that. Just give me the badge. So I was driving, and it's on the shoulder inappropriately. Highland Park officer pulls me over and says, who are you? So I'm a young Turk, I think I know everything. So I show him the badge. He says, you know what you can do with that? I said, I'm sure glad I didn't take the plaque. But to my dear friend Oscar Villas, thank you for this program, and I'm talking about Ben Lopez in a second, but also to Senator Cunningham. You know, I am enraptured with Senator Cunningham, and my father, who's now 86, but my mother, who says he's completely harmless, is her biggest fan. And I just remember the story of one time Senator Cunningham was on vacation in the islands, and she was driving, she has a heavy foot, and she was spinning around the corner of a road, and she got tossed out of her Jeep. And she's falling down the side, and she sees a branch, she jumps up, and she grabs a branch. And she looks down and 6,000 feet below, and there's nothing but waves hitting the rocks. And Senator Cunningham says, Lord, I've been a good and faithful servant, answer my prayer. And finally a voice comes out of the heavens, Sandra Bolton Cunningham, have faith, this is your God. And Sandy says, Lord, Lord, what shall I do? And the Lord says, Sandra, have faith, let go of the branch. And Senator Cunningham looks up and says, is anybody else up there? One person who has always kept faith with our community, one person who has always fought the good fight. And it wasn't popular, when it wasn't politically correct, has great integrity. A friend to this governor, to Democrats and Republicans, because she always stays true to her principles, Senator Cunningham. She happens to be on the Labor Committee, so let's be smart. My dear friend, Commissioner Lanigan, and it's a tough job. It's a tough job. It's a tough job presiding over a prison system. And I said to Senator Cunningham, I've got to be nice. I think the whole thing should be blown up, but I got to be politically correct. But he does a great job. And let me just say, this administration and this governor, more than any governor, has done more to address the problems of recidivism and treatment, and that's also due to this commissioner and our governor, Chris Christie. So, President Schwartz, the second vice president. I was looking at the thing, and I was like, who is this guy Patton? Where's Patton? Is he here? All right, I'm glad the Irish haven't been totally banned from the political process. I mean, it's just like, the McGreeveys and Cunningham, so where do we go? But again, I thank you both, and Perry in a special way. Thank you very much for the invitation. To my dear friend Keith Davis, who does so much. He's the Harry Wheeler Award winner, and Tammy Molinelli, who's going to be the next Harry Wheeler Award winner. Keith has been a voice of inspiration, and particularly in terms of the leadership, in terms of community programs and youth programs. And then Ben Lopez, who helped spearhead our program and our model in Hudson County. Thank you, Ben. And Frank Mazza, who heads our reintegration program. I want to thank John Kofus, who also works with Jersey City Reentry, and Adam was our great deputy director. Thank you all. And also our chairman, Roger Jones. Roger, could you please stand? Thank you very much. I've become a payroll patriot. You've got to recognize the people that signed the check. I have a great pleasure today to be here on behalf of Mayor Fulop, but I just want to talk to you about a little bit about why you hear from Commissioner Lanigan, DOC, you hear from Senator Bolton and Senator Cunningham, and you wonder why everybody's talking about reentry at the GSETA Association conference. And I remember coming to this conference many years ago when I had the privilege of serving New Jersey. But let me just say that there's an interesting paradigm shift going on in this country. We're 5% of the world's population. We're 25% of the world's incarcerated population. 1 out of every 100 Americans are locked up. 1 out of every 32 are either in jail, prison, parole, probation. This is nuts. This is nuts. And I'm not going to go, if you have a chance, you should read Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. And I have my whole theory, but I'll save you for that. But it's what we're doing is, I'll just give you my thumbnail sketch. After I left the governor's office, I was in seminary in New York, and the dean of the seminary, Father Ward Ewing, said, why don't you go up to Harlem and work in this program called Exodus Transitional Ministry. And it focused on ex-offenders. So I said, I just came through my mishigash, I just, sort of blew up my life, but I figured, how can they look down on me? They're murderers. I mean, I gotta feel good about myself. So it's just like, I'm just like, hey. And so all of a sudden I go there and they serve, and Adam and I worked together in Harlem, and they were the worst pancakes, the worst hot dogs, every single day of the week. It was just like, and all of a sudden I realized that I'm dealing with men and women who have come through awful circumstances, didn't grow up where I did, with nice little, white middle class America, people who really struggled with life at all different circumstances, but wanted the same things I did. They wanted a safe home, they wanted something better for their kids, and they wanted a job. And the more I did this, the more I recognized how crazy this system is. Because what happens is, I would argue, make up that 20% of the people behind bars really deserve to be there. Probably forever. Whatever they look like. But there's 70% of the people behind bars are addicts or alcoholics. Now, when I had the privilege of working with Director Avila's at Integrity, I remember a young woman from Camden Public Housing who was raped 6 times by the age of 12. How in God's name do you make sense of life under those circumstances? How do you deal with it? I have a 12-year-old daughter. I think I don't want to set myself up for an indictment, but I would kill somebody. And just like this young girl, this young, beautiful woman. And so the reality is, Commissioner Lanigan can do all the good things he's doing, and he's doing them. And I want people to recognize that. But at the end of the day, we have to change this system. Excuse me, it sucks. It doesn't work. 2/3 of the people coming out of prison within 3 years nationally are committing felonies. And when you have Richard Viguerie, who's, I think, a right-wing Republican in the pages of the New York Times, saying this prison system can't go on in perpetuity, we've got to do things better. If anything in America had a 2/3 failure rate, you wouldn't go back to the same hot dog stand or the same movie theater. And so what I'm saying is, whether you're Republican or Democrat, we're reaching a tipping point where the Supreme Court is telling the state of California they have to open up their penitentiaries, and Governor Brown has to grapple with who he's going to release. Now, I believe that Commissioner Lanigan, and again, I can't praise this governor enough, but the governor needs support. And frankly, corrections, as Director Villa said, At the end of the day, Gary Lanigan's responsibility, morally and ethically and operationally, is not to oversee re-entry and make sure that ex-offenders get jobs. I would argue there's a unique challenge for GSETA. I would argue for this association, there's an opportunity to shape the policy debate. Because who's advocating for ex-offenders? No one. Churches, shuls, temples, mosques. But at the end of the day, Commissioner Lanigan, Director Villas, they're fighting for re-entry on the local level. But in terms of getting people jobs, it can't be Gary's job or Oscar's job. It has to be our job. And when Senator Cunningham does everything right, at the end of the day, it's us. Now in Trenton State Prison, there's a wonderful nun, Sister Helen, is an old Irish nun, and she's a little crazy. She says, I think, ex-offenders should get first preference. Sister, go easy. She goes, hey, if you want to get them all reemployed, you have to put them at the top of the list. Okay, sister, I think it's happening this week. But there's a certain logic to what she's saying. That if we want to get people fully integrated, that they have to have job opportunities. And say, for example, Jersey City. There's 1,000 ex-offenders coming back to Jersey City every year. Ben Lopez has a great vision. The Director of Villas, Frank Mazza, we're going to help to provide treatment. Treatment is so critically important. If 70% of the people behind bars are addicts, why don't we start making sure that everybody has access to treatment? Now, Commissioner Lanigan's trying to do that, but we have to do more. And frankly, I would argue, if somebody is not guilty of a violent offense and they're an addict, there's a better place to put that person than incarcerating in a state prison. And this isn't necessarily rocket science, but it's common sense. Why should Commissioner Lanigan and the Department of Corrections and that labyrinth control the entirety of a person's life when what they fundamentally need is treatment? And whether it's the Dutch, the Israelis, the Italians, they all get it. America is using a punitive English model that the British don't even use any longer. They understand that addiction is a disease. And that's why the governor was kind enough with Senator Cunningham and Nancy Pelosi to come up to Jersey City to say, treatment, treatment, treatment. Because if you go through the correctional facility and at the end of the day you don't get treated, you just come out and you go back to running and gunning and doping. Hello? Like this is, So addiction is a disease. Ben Lopez and Director Villas knows you have to treat. And that's what we're doing in Hudson County. And then the second thing is housing. You can't send people back, people, places, and things to the same corner. I think everybody in this business should watch The Wire. Because the bottom line is, I believe that people do want to do it differently. But for the young woman I was talking about, Ashley, joining a gang was the only way to make sure she was alive the next day. It wasn't an option. Her mother was a crack prostitute. She wanted to stay alive. The irony is, her grandfather was a police officer in Camden County, and her mother used to have her break into her own father's house, her grandfather's house, to get money for the drug habit. So it was like a crazy land. It was chaos. So that's why you need to take people out of that housing situation and provide transitional housing. And thanks to Ben Lopez, I'm mentioning his name 5 times so far, Ben. I just want you to count. Send me a check. Yeah, whatever. Just make sure you get Medicaid for housing, transitional housing. But no, we're doing it in Hudson County. So it's addiction treatment, it's housing, and the last thing is a job. It's the last thing and the first thing. Let me just say, I was blessed as a Senator Cunningham and her late husband, who was in the United States Marine Corps, as my dad was a Marine Corps drill instructor, and he, Semper Fi, blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, imagine growing up with that. Still have to pull my bed and bounce the nickel and all this crazy stuff. I still belong in therapy. But the point is this. getting a job. If people can't sustain themselves financially and economically, where are we going? And so that we have to change this model. If we're really serious, Sister is right. People have to be able to be financially self-sufficient. And I'm just arguing to you, to GSETA, that nobody else is taking up this cause. You know, like the mayor says, he believes in reentry, but people look at me and it's like, why is Jersey City Plumbing Training doing reentry? And my response is, in part, nobody else is. And with the advent of the new act, particularly the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act and the recent release of federal job training programs, there's an interesting opportunity that's happening in Congress between the Department of Labor and the Department of Justice Second Chance programs. Because the Council of State Governments recently issued a report and said, Second Chance doesn't work without workforce innovation and opportunity. And at the end of the day, we can put all of this money into retraining. We can put all of this money into housing. We can put all of this money into SAMHSA for addiction services. But if the labor community and the GSETA community isn't fully engaged, it's not happening long term. And so what I'm saying to you is, and you've worked with the underemployed and you've worked with the unemployed, I'm going to say to you there's no greater moral crisis in this nation today than to work for the least of our brethren and sisters. And I'll be blunt, if you don't do it, nobody else is doing it. If you don't get engaged, nobody else is getting engaged. Because at the end of the day, frankly, whether it's jails or corrections, and Gary Lanigan and Oscar Villas can do all the greatest things. Ben Lopez can make sure there's transitional housing. But if we don't engage them in the dignity of work, and we don't advocate for them in the state legislature, with the governor's office, and we're not at the front lines, it's not going to happen. So I'm here, you know, and we have Commissioner, we have Senator, Schwartz and Schwartz, the poor Irish are in the back of the bus. I'm just saying there's a great challenge. There's a great ethical and moral challenge. And every day we see people. Yesterday, between the time I parked my car and the time I walked into Martin's place, a woman was crying to me about the need for a job. Literally, 10 steps. I am telling you, I have the privilege of working with the greatest people in the world. People who want the same thing that my grandparents wanted, want the same thing that all of our families wanted. They want a second chance, they want the dignity of work, and they want the chance to participate in the American dream. With your help, we can give it to them. Thank you.